All right, we are going to talk about multiplying polynomials. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to recall an exponent rule. And that one is if you have x squared times x to the fifth, let's say, so they're the same base, then what you could do is you could combine the exponents. So you could add them together. And so that gives you x to the 7. For example number 1, in this case, we have a coefficient in front of those, so that coefficient would be 2 and 5. You just multiply those numbers together, so we get 10, and then we get x to the third times x to the 6th. And remember, we could combine those together because they have the same base and add the exponents. So it would give you a 10x to the 9th. All right, this next one, it's a little bit different. It has a number with the variable on the outside, and you're going to go ahead and multiply that inside. So you're going to get 2x times 5x minus 2x times 4. And you could multiply these numbers again. So 2 times 5, that would be 10. And then x and x, since they both have an exponent of 1, that would be x squared. All right, the next, you multiply the 2 and the 4, so that gives you 8. And then the x, there's only an x there, so you just bring it down. And that is what you would get. All right, the next one, same thing. You're going to go ahead and distribute that in. And that'd be 3x squared times 4x squared minus 3x squared times negative 6x minus 3x squared times 1. And then you go ahead and simplify each one of those. So that gives you a negative 12. And then I'm going to add the exponents. So that's x to the 4th. And then here you have negative 3 times a negative 6. So that gives you a positive 18. And then you have an x and then a 1. So that gives you x to the 3rd power. And lastly, you have a negative 3 and a 1. So that's a negative 3. And then you have just the x squared. So you do want to be a little bit careful with all the negatives there. It kind of got lost. You could put things in parentheses to kind of distinguish what you're multiplying, if that helps you. Okay, so next we're going to go ahead and multiply this. So notice this has two variables now, right? So it's the same process. We're going to go ahead and multiply. So I have a negative xy times 7x squared y. And I'm putting things in parentheses just because there's so much going on there. And then plus negative xy times 3xy. And then plus negative xy times negative 11. All right, so for the first one, let's go ahead and simplify the numbers. So negative 1 and 7, that's a negative 7. And then basically what you do is it becomes two problems in one. So you multiply the x's times the x's. So you add the exponents. That would be x to the 3rd. And then the y's times the y's. So they both have a degree 1. So it would be y squared. Okay, then next would be the negative 1 and the 3. So it would be minus 3. And then the x's and the x's. So that would be x squared, because that 1 plus another 1. And then y and y, that's 1 plus 1, so it's y squared. And then lastly, so a negative 1 times a negative 11, it's a positive 11. And then there's no other x's and y's, so you just attach that. And you are done. All right, so next thing we're going to do here is we're going to multiply. So for these ones, it's a binomial times a binomial or a binomial times a trinomial. So in this case, we're going to use the box method to multiply these. All right. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a box. And then you're going to go ahead and divide it out into how many things you have. So this is a 2 by 2. So therefore I made a 2 by 2 box. And then you just place it there. So you're going to place x and 3 down here, 2x here, and 5 here. And then you're going to multiply diagonally. So 2x times x, and that's going to simplify to 2x squared. This is going to be 5x. This is going to be 2x times 3, which is going to simplify out to 6x. And then lastly, it's going to be 15. Most of the time, the diagonals will be like terms, which means that you need to add those together. So you're going to simplify this. It's going to be 2x squared plus adding those diagonals is 11x plus 15. So that would be my final answer. All right. Next, we have this one right here, and I'm going to go ahead and create some space here. So here you have a 2 by 3. So we're going to create a box that's a 2. You have 2 terms here and 3 terms over here. All right, and so I need 2 terms here and then 3 this way. All right, so this is a 2 by 3, so 2x negative 3, 5x squared minus 6x and 7. Again, multiply the diagonals. So this would be 2x times 5x squared. Multiply the numbers together, and then you add the exponents. Okay, 2x times the negative 6x. This would give you negative 12x squared. And then this would be 2x times 7, which is a 14x. All right, this next one, you have 5x squared times negative 3, so it's going to be a negative 15x squared. And then over here you have negative 3 times negative 6x, so that gives you a positive 18x. And then lastly would be negative 21. All right, just double checking the diagonals. Yep, you could add those two together, and then you could add these two together. All right, so we're going to go ahead and combine those. So the first one is going to be 10x to the third, and then we're going to go ahead and combine those red ones. So 15, negative 12 plus negative 15 is going to be negative 27x squared. And then you're going to go ahead and combine the 18 and the 14. So that's going to give you plus 32x and then minus 21. So that would be our final answer. All right. And last one is a trinomial times a trinomial. So we're going to go ahead and I give myself some space here. So this would mean I would need a 3 by 3 because I have 3 terms in the first one and 3 terms in the next one. So I need a 3 by 3. So let's go ahead and create a box. And then we need 3 and then 3. All right, and then let's go ahead and write everything out. So 3x squared, x minus 2, 2x squared minus x minus 1. So now just for shortcut reasons, I am going to do a lot of this in my head. So this gives you 6 x to the fourth minus 3x to the third minus 3x squared, 2x to the third minus 4x squared minus x squared, 2x, negative x, and positive 2 at the very end. And so if we look at our diagonals, they do all have the same coefficients. So the first ones are x cubed, the second ones are x squared, and the last one are x's, so you could combine those. All right, so we're going to go ahead and write this out. Okay, so the first one is going to be 6x to the fourth, and then the next one, if we combine 2 and minus 3, that gives you minus 1x to the third. And then the next one would give you negative 5, 6, 7, 8, so negative 8x squared. And then the last one would be a plus x, and then plus 2 at the very end. So this would be our answer. All right, so that's what you multiply a trinomial times a trinomial. And the last thing we're going to talk about is multiplying the sum or product of two terms. So if you notice here, you have A, B, B, and the only thing that's different between these is this is a positive and this is a negative. So we're going to go ahead, and this is the shortcut. Okay, so we're going to do this using the shortcut and using the box method. So let's go ahead and start off with the box. This is 2 by 2, so I'm going to need a 2 by 2 box. X minus 3, x plus 3, and so that's going to give you x squared here, 3x here, minus 3x, and then minus 9x. So if you notice, the diagonal terms, which are like terms, they cancel each other out because one's 3x and one's a negative 3x. So those are going to cancel each other out, and all you're left with is x squared minus 9. So that's the box method. Let's move on to the shortcut. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite it. So you first have to figure out what A and B is. So A is x, and then B, it's always going to be a positive number, so it'd be 3. And then you just plug it into the formula. So x squared minus 3 squared. So that's going to give you x squared minus 9. All right, and so that would be the shortcut. And the further you go along in math, the more and more you're going to see this shortcut, and the more and more you're going to be familiar with it. All right, so let's try one more of these, just using the shortcut. So again, your shortcut would be a squared minus b squared. That's why it's called difference of squares. And so your a is 4y, and your b, remember, it's always a positive number, so that's going to be 1. So you're going to go ahead and plug it in. 4y, it has that parentheses around, and then squared minus 1 squared. So 4y squared, if you want to do that on the side, you can. That's 4y times 4y. So that's going to be 16y squared minus 1. So that would be your answer.